This video explores 20 things every British household had in the 1950s. If this brings back memories, please let us know where you're watching from in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more nostalgic journeys through British history. #20 Things Every British Household Had in the 1950s, Part 1. Step into any British home in the 1950s, and you'd find yourself in a world quite different from today. The post-war years brought a peculiar blend of austerity and optimism, where households made do and mended, yet looked forward to brighter days ahead. Let's begin our journey in the hallway, where the first thing you'd encounter was the telephone table. If the family was lucky enough to have a phone, that is. In 1950, only 1 in 10 British homes had a telephone. The waiting list for installation stretched for months, sometimes years. When the GPO finally connected your line, you'd pay around £2 for installation and 10 shillings quarterly rental. The heavy Bakelite telephone sat proudly on its designated table, complete with a notepad and pencil for taking messages. Remember, there were no answering machines, no voicemail, just scraps of paper tucked under the phone. Move through to the living room and there sat the wireless set. By the mid-50s, nearly every household had one, and it formed the entertainment centerpiece. Bush, Echo, and Pi were the names you'd see on these substantial pieces of furniture. They weren't merely radios, but handsome wooden cabinets that commanded respect. Families gathered round for the home service or the light program. Dick Barton's special agent kept children glued to their seats at 6:45 each evening. The Goon Show had the whole nation laughing. That wireless was on from breakfast through to bedtime, providing news, drama, comedy, and music in equal measure. Beneath the wireless, you'd invariably find the Radio Times. First published back in 1923, it had become an essential household item. Every Friday, you'd pop to the newsagent and collect your copy for threepence. It told you everything being broadcast that week, and British families planned their lives around it. Arguments over what to listen to were settled by consulting its pages as though it were holy writ. The coal scuttle sat beside the fireplace, usually made of brass or copper. Central heating was virtually unknown in ordinary homes. You heated your house the old-fashioned way, with coal fires. The coalman delivered weekly, his sacks leaving dusty trails through your hallway. A 100-weight bag cost around 10 shillings in the early 50s. Children were dispatched to fetch coal from the bunker outside. The fire needed constant attention, and someone had to riddle out the ashes each morning. Cold bedrooms were simply accepted as part of life. On the mantelpiece above that fire, the family clock ticked away the hours. Smiths and Garrard produced thousands of these reliable timepieces. Keeping them wound was a small ritual, performed every Sunday evening without fail. Beside the clock, you'd find ornaments brought back from seaside holidays. Blackpool Tower in miniature, perhaps, or a piece of Gauss china from Margate. These treasures reminded families of their precious annual week away. The sideboard dominated most living rooms, dark and imposing. Oak was popular, often inherited from parents or grandparents. Behind its doors lived the best china, reserved for special occasions and important visitors. Sunday tea meant bringing out the good cups and saucers. You'd also find the family photograph album tucked away inside. Black and white snaps were carefully mounted and captioned. Taking photographs was expensive, so every shot counted. A roll of film cost several shillings to buy and process. Antimacassars draped across every chair and sofa. These decorative cloths protected furniture from Brylcreem and pomade, which men liberally applied to their hair. A little dab'll do ya, as the adverts said, though most chaps used rather more than a little. Antimacassars were crocheted by hand or bought from Woolworths for a few pence. Keeping them clean was part of the weekly wash routine. The television set began appearing in living rooms during the early 50s, though it remained a luxury. The 1953 coronation sparked a massive surge in ownership. Suddenly, everyone wanted to see history unfold in their own homes. By 1954, over 3 million television licenses had been issued. A set cost around £75, a significant investment when average weekly wages were perhaps £8 or £9. The tiny screen showed just one channel, the BBC, broadcasting for only a few hours daily. Programs ended at bedtime, replaced by the test card. Children's Hour ran for just 60 minutes after school. Yet families treasured their sets, often covering them with hand-embroidered cloths when not in use. Venture into the kitchen, and you'd find the meat safe attached to an outside wall. Refrigerators remained uncommon until the late 50s. In 1950, fewer than 2% of households owned one. The meat safe, a ventilated cupboard, kept food cool using airflow. Perishables lasted a day or two at most. Daily shopping wasn't a choice but a necessity. The milkman delivered each morning, and you'd hear his float rattling down the street at dawn. The kitchen table was scrubbed pine, sturdy and practical. Formica tables were just beginning to appear, modern and exciting with their bright patterns and easy clean surfaces. This was where families ate every meal, where homework was completed, where clothes were ironed. The kitchen table witnessed the full drama of domestic life. 20 Things Every British Household Had in the 1950s, Part 2. In that same kitchen, you'd find the wash copper or boiler tucked into the corner. Monday was wash day, an immutable law of British domestic life. The copper needed filling with water, then heating for hours to get clothes clean. Dolly tubs and washboards did the heavy scrubbing. Your mother or grandmother would have spent the entire day at this exhausting labor. Persil and Rinso were the washing powders of choice, advertised relentlessly in women's magazines. By mid-decade, twin-tub washing machines began appearing, priced at around £50. They were miraculous devices, though still requiring constant supervision and manual intervention between cycles. The mangle stood ready to wring excess water from the clothes. 2 wooden rollers squeezed fabric as flat as pastry. Getting your fingers caught was a genuine childhood fear, though it happened less often than you'd imagine. The wrung-out washing then went outside on the line, strung across the garden or yard. Every back garden had washing lines, often several of them. Wooden props held them high as sheets billowed like sails. If rain threatened, there'd be a frantic dash to bring everything indoors. The Acme and Eubank companies produced thousands of these mangles, built to last decades. Hanging in the larder, you'd discover the string bag. These expandable nets were essential for shopping before plastic carriers existed. Every housewife kept one in her handbag or coat pocket. Shops didn't provide bags for free. You brought your own or paid a penny for brown paper wrapping. The string bag stretched to accommodate whatever you purchased, from tins of Spam to fresh vegetables. It became an iconic symbol of the era, spotted on every high street and market. The biscuit barrel sat prominently on the kitchen counter, usually decorated tin from Huntley and Palmer's or McVitie's. Loose biscuits were bought by weight from the grocer, who'd scoop them from large tins into paper bags. Custard creams, bourbon biscuits, and digestives were perennial favorites. A £1/4 cost about 6 pence. These decorative tins were kept and reused for years, storing sewing supplies, buttons, or letters long after the biscuits were consumed. Upstairs in the bedroom, the eiderdown covered every bed. Heavy, quilted, and often covered in shiny satin, it provided warmth through freezing winter nights. Hot water bottles were essential companions, filled from the kettle before bedtime. Stone or rubber, they'd warm your feet through the coldest evenings. You'd wrap them in a towel to prevent burns. Central heating seemed an impossible luxury, something only wealthy folk enjoyed. The chamber pot lived under the bed, often decorated with floral patterns. Outside toilets were still common, particularly in older terraced houses. Venturing out on a winter's night was an ordeal most preferred to avoid. The pot served its purpose, though emptying it each morning was nobody's favorite chore. Indoor bathrooms were spreading rapidly through the 50s, but plenty of households still made do with the old arrangements. The wardrobe was a substantial piece of furniture, not the flat-pack affairs we buy today. Built from solid wood, it would last a lifetime and probably serve the next generation too. Inside hung far fewer clothes than modern wardrobes contain. People owned perhaps 2 or 3 outfits for best, work clothes, and something for pottering about the house. Clothing was expensive and cherished. A decent suit cost several weeks' wages. You'd make do and mend, turning collars, darning socks, and letting down hems as children grew. The dressing table held a matching set of hairbrush, comb, and mirror, often received as wedding presents. Cut glass scent bottles contained precious perfume, used sparingly. Coty, Yardley, and Evening in Paris were popular brands. A small bottle cost around 5 shillings. Powder compacts and lipsticks were treasured possessions, carefully looked after. Max Factor and Outdoor Girl graced dressing tables across the nation. In the bathroom, you'd spot the loofah hanging beside the bath. These natural sponges from Egypt were standard bathing equipment. A proper scrub with a loofah was considered essential for cleanliness. Baths happened once or twice weekly, not daily. Heating enough water was time-consuming and costly. The immersion heater needed switching on an hour beforehand. Father bathed first, then mother, then children in descending age order. The water was topped up with kettles as needed, but generally, you used what was there. The airing cupboard housed the family linen, warming it around the hot water tank. Sheets, towels, and undergarments lived here, emerging toasty warm. Before modern fabrics, cotton and linen needed proper airing to prevent dampness and mildew. This cupboard also served as the spot to dry wet shoes and air outdoor coats. Every household had one, and its gentle warmth was deeply comforting. Finally, in the garden shed, the Anderson shelter might still be standing. Though the war had ended, many families kept these corrugated iron structures. Some converted them into garden stores or potting sheds. They stood as silent reminders of darker days, now peacefully hosting garden tools, flower pots, and seed packets. Children played in abandoned ones, creating secret dens and hideaways. These were the things that filled British homes through the 1950s. Simple items by today's standards, yet they tell us so much about daily life back then. Households functioned without the endless gadgets we consider essential now. Life moved at a gentler pace, though it certainly wasn't easier. Every task required more physical effort, more time, more attention. Yet there was satisfaction in these simple routines, in things built to last, in making do with what you had. Those post-war years shaped a generation's character, teaching thrift, resilience, and resourcefulness. The households of the 50s may seem quaint now, but they were homes nonetheless, filled with love, laughter, and the determined optimism that built modern Britain.